Well, starting at 6, excuse me, starting at 5:33, I'd like to call to order the Water Sewer Commission's meeting. First, pledge of allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you. All right, without further ado, we'll get right into it with superintendent's updates.
Thank you, Steve. I'll do my
Thank
best
you
to
all for coming.
fly through these. Again, welcome, Brooke.
Thank you.
Do your best to keep up. Any
I'll
questions,
try.
stop us along the way if you got any questions or anything.
Okay.
That way we don't go too far ahead of you. All right, I'll start off with some updates. Some fire suppression testing, stuff I had mentioned at a previous meeting. We actually had 2 of our schedules that were canceled at the last minute, 2 of the smaller tests. There were some conflicts with some of the tenants at a couple locations. The larger fire pump flow test did proceed. That was for 312 East Main Street, CFS. And as expected, there were some phone calls that were generated from that pump. It's a rather large pump. Didn't run very long, but it was enough to shake things up. And it wasn't limited to that area where the test was performed. Typical, we see it on the outskirts of town where water starts to move and then stops.
Are the small ones going to be done?
Smalls
Rescheduled?
are postponed. They should be done, I believe, the end of this month. 30th is ringing a bell for some
Yep.
reason. Okay.
Yep, okay. Tuesday?
Notifications for the bigger fire pump. We're actually in the Sun Chronicle, the Norton Media cable access channel, and on both town website pages. And I mentioned, I guess, because we did get a few calls and people were unaware of the events that were happening. We did mention to them the Norton Alerts and the Norton Neighbors page that John is also a part of, were 2 other ways that they may want to invest some time in so that
Okay,
they can get a
good.
notification directly to them for these events if they didn't have time to locate the information on these other channels that we use.
Did we have to flush hydrants?
We did.
Yeah.
We kind of planned ahead. We knew it was going to be impactful, so we had a discussion what areas we typically see impacts when that test is run, and had a plan. Basically, we wanted to go out. We wanted to do a couple streets and use that for our advantage because once the water's stirred up, why don't flush the entire street instead of just doing home to home.
Right.
So we had worked on that the morning prior, and it fell pretty much right in line with what's happened in the past. Certain areas that generated phone calls, and oddly enough, we actually got a couple questions. One actually I took this afternoon is why didn't we flush their hydrant? So I spoke with a lady this afternoon before the meeting, explained that we don't do every hydrant. Even if you call, we're going to do a hydrant that's going to flow and not create a problem. You may have one on your front lawn, it may flood your home or your side yard. We're not going to usually pick that one to do. So we'll pull it around the corner to a dead end. Another area of the street, if we can pull it past the location and put it in the woods, we're going to choose that option. So, a lot of times when people call, they don't usually see us in front of their house. Sometimes they do, but we do our best to run the system and control the flow where we know it's a safe location to put it. So, using that flow test, we actually, what do we put out there? Crane, Pine, Plain, Old Taunton Ave, New Taunton Ave maybe? Does that ring a bell? Knowing that they were areas that were impacted by the change in direction. The test was actually on the other side of town.
Right.
But, water is happy to go one way, you start changing direction, and
that's a problem
that's
area
where you
too.
start seeing the problem. And that is one of the problem areas, so we were planning on that. And we actually flushed those streets in their entirety. Not every hydrant, but we leapfrogged along,
Right.
pulled into some dead-end roads, and, we're able to improve the water quality throughout that whole section because the flow test generated the response. So, let's see. Okay, skipped around a little bit. That kind of brings us to the random disruption calls, for the problem areas that we still deal with. We sent out a second round of notification letters to property owners with fire suppression systems. It actually generated a few more calls from different locations that we haven't had in the past.
Oh, good. Good.
They basically say they didn't get the first notice, they were unaware of it, but obviously they're gonna work with us moving forward.
That's all we ask. That's all we ask.
That's all, we wanna be in control of these, as much as we possibly can. It's highly unlikely that there's a test or testings going on that are affecting the areas that we see or that we know as a problem area, but anything's possible. I mean, you could have one 2 or 3 streets away, that's a quarterly test, and that just seems to be the frequency that we're seeing disturbances in certain areas. So by being out there a little bit more, we're gonna have a handle on things.
Right.
If we can link 2 and 2 together, some of the locations, as we talked about before, almost display like a roadmap. Areas that we used to have complaint calls on a regular basis, and down either on that street or a street away, there's a sprinkler test being performed. Can we take all the blame off ourselves? No, definitely not. But if there's a cause behind it, then we can come up with a solution to solve the problem.
Yeah, absolutely.
So what we are actually going to do is something different, and it may be a good thing or a bad thing. It's an experimental thing. Now that we've got a little bit more water and very little extra, we're going to go either to a week and a half or a 2-week flush in the problem area. See if we can turn it over, maintain a steady chlorine residual there, so we're not seeing fluctuations of peaks and valleys.
What are we running for hours? Sorry to interrupt.
No, that's fine.
What are we running for, like, hours approximately?
It's dropped from, we were at 21 to 23, and now we're down to like 18 to 21.
Okay.
So we're still on the border. We really don't want to push them too hard, but we think we have enough extra water with the change in hours, the change in use, that we can facilitate some light flushing in the problem area. And if we can do it sequentially with everything else going on, timing and all that, we want to see if it's going to improve the situation that we see over there, or if it's going to make it worse. But it's something we're going to try. We've never done it before. Trying to be proactive instead of reactive. That'll go until we get 5 and 6, or 5A and 6A connected to the water treatment facility, which I know Tara has some great news about that.
I like great news.
I won't take her
Great
thunder
news.
from that one.
We're gonna wait for that.
So we're gonna do our best to keep up. I think it's probably gonna be every 2 weeks. See if we can go that far, do a low turnover. We still do our dead ends. We still do our areas that we notice that the water quality drops off, and because of a chlorine residual demand.
Are you doing this at night or during the day?
This is during the day. No sense of, if we're gonna be out there and it's gonna impact somebody, we'd like to know as soon as possible.
Yeah.
Because if you're gonna create an area and it's gonna stop moving around, well, now you're just making a bigger problem, making everything worse for everybody else.
Yep.
Right.
And it's,
People don't know about it till the next day.
and it's funny that you bring that up, because more often than not, when we respond to a complaint call, we get more people complaining that we're there and it's gonna create dirty water flushing the hydrant,
Oh, yeah.
than when we actually go there and flush it. We respond to the complaint calls because that's what you do. And it is true. Sometimes you can open a hydrant and actually clear that one specific area up, but create a problem, 2, 4, 6 houses down the road, or even on another road. You're changing the direction of flow, the speed of the water. There's a lot involved with, isolated flushing. So that's what I mean. It's an experiment. We're gonna try it. We got nothing to lose. We're gonna be out there flushing regardless, but if we can head it off before it becomes a problem, we all think it's kind of the best option to take. I'll skip over the news that Tara has. Jump over to, I'm gonna go a little bit out of line here. I'll go to not anticipated topics. Our friend at Island Brook reached back out to us. This is for Route 123. They, I guess they were unclear that they really wanted an order of conditions for the water main. that was gonna be run to their property. I explained to him, well, I said, we left it that we were waiting to see a copy of your plans overlaid with the new Mass DOT plans.
Right.
So that was straightened out. We actually have a copy of them here. Just the 2 pages of where the water mains are gonna go to that property.
Yep.
The issue there, it's kind of 2 separate things. He still hasn't reached out or heard back, if he did reach out, from the MFN about the sewer connection.
Okay,
I know, Jim, you had mentioned, and I fully support, staying completely off of 123 and making a connection to the interceptor through the back of the property.
Right, you would have had to have contacted the property.
The property owner and MFN to make sure they're gonna allow it in that location.
Yeah, that's true.
He hasn't been able to present any documents to me. Maybe there is stuff going on behind the scenes, but,
so what, is he looking for approval, just the water right now?
well,
What is?
yes and no. Yes, he wants approval to bring the water across. I don't think we approved the plans because they're not finalized plans.
Yeah.
That would go against everything that the
I thought
board
that
has
was.
done all along.
And that's what we discussed with
Yep.
him, I thought he understood that, right?
And I thought he did too.
What are these plans?
These are showing the 2 lateral connections going across the road
Oh, okay.
to that subdivision.
It's just that section, that part of the whole
So
set of plans.
we
okay.
could treat this as a water service installation. Have him apply for the permit, pay the fees, do the work, either him or a contractor do the work.
Right.
Have those 2 legs going across the road, pressure test active with a hydrant on the end, and valves for future expansion. Totally separate from the project.
Okay.
And then once he has his finalized set of plans for water and sewer, he'd be able to connect to these 2 existing laterals that he paid for and
So in other
installed.
words, this set of plans gets approved completely differently.
Completely
than
separate from
set
the
of plans for
subdivision.
Subdivision itself.
It doesn't solve the problem about the sewer and where he plans to do anything with it.
Is this the correct protocol we should take with this? I mean, I know we should do it all at once. I mean, everything
Right.
should be looked at, and so we've got all the variables in front of us.
I was gonna defer to Tara if she's ever seen anything like this happen anywhere else.
I mean, I don't really like the idea of that.
I don't like
to be
the
honest with
piecemeal
you.
idea, but I understand his time restraint.
Yep, and
But that still doesn't
Totally
solve
get
the
that.
problem with the sewer.
No.
You know, if
that's
he's
true.
still anticipating trying to get sewer down 123, he's gonna run out of time with that.
Yeah.
You know. But I'm not gonna turn somebody's money away if they wanna pay for and install 2 laterals and 2 new hydrants on a road that they may or may not use in the future.
at least we got the hydrants for the future and they're live and we can.
Yeah, that's a good point. It's a
Right.
totally separate project that gets done and paid for.
Right, I mean, there'd have to be some type of wording drawn up so that he understands that this is totally separate. We're not approving his subdivision because we don't have final plans. This is to approve 2 laterals going across, meeting town
Yeah.
spec. And then there's still the discussion about the discrepancy that was there in the price. That letter that he had
There's still
presented
that
to us,
structure, yeah, that needs to be addressed
Right.
first as well.
you know. If I've mentioned to him in an email, if he can provide documentation from whether 2012 or 2015, whenever it was, to show that the prior board agreed to X, Y, Z because of this, present the documents. I mean, doesn't mean that everything,
It bothers me because there's no signatures applied to it, and it just looks,
The
it
font
looks like
was
it was
different.
played out
Yep.
and put in there. I'm not trying to accuse anybody of doing
Yep.
anything, but it doesn't look right.
no, exactly, yeah. I mean, it appears obvious that there was something that's different about it.
Yeah.
You know, how that came about, I don't know, but,
If that was a change after the fact, it was still fine and signed off upon, then it gets, it could be explained, but.
But this isn't something that's on the agenda, this is something just I wanted to bring up and speak about because I did have him here. Something you guys can think about,
Okay.
you know, we can bring him in at another meeting, you know, have some documents and stuff drawn up. I definitely want to talk to Tara if she's seen anything like this in the past with other towns or other developers, because I really don't want to piecemeal this thing together either.
Nope, nor do I. And the, I think putting him on an agenda is thing one. And hopefully he'll have new plans that are updated, that are a little more, you know, confirmed in regards to location and everything. And hopefully the sewer will be resolved by then too. Well, I mean, what kind of time frame is he looking at? I mean, he's got to be up against the clock.
Yeah, the last I heard from Resendes, they haven't been out there for a couple weeks. I don't know if it's weather or what's going on. We have the updated estimate for the change in cost based on the meeting that we had out there in the field. that's gonna most likely be submitted and approved as is. It was actually a pretty good price on the insertion valve. I sent a copy of that over to you. Slight discrepancy, probably just the markup that we saw between the actual cost and what the
So they are gonna
contractor's
do the insertion valve?
Yep.
Oh. 16-inch insertion valve? I can't even imagine what that cost is.
It was probably half of what I thought it would have been, honestly.
I know we talked about it when they first said it in the meeting in the trailer.
Yeah.
And I know what a 6-inch is.
Right.
8-inch.
But,
I can't imagine 16, but
I mean, it's not the best
Beneficial to
solution,
us.
but it's a benefit for everybody
Right.
involved.
absolutely.
But yeah, this is something just to think about if you guys want to look at these plans. It's basically a blow up exactly what you guys saw last time on those two areas. The setbacks have changed a little bit there. I wanted to, and I didn't get a chance, so I wanted to look at the original plans because there's an area there that they had the directional drill. And based on where the setback for the hydrant would have to be, I don't know if that's going to put it and push it off into the wetlands. You know, because one of the,
What are they going under? What are they directions?
there's a
going?
river that runs along the edge of that
Okay,
there.
Okay.
So that could create an issue. But if there's not gonna be any road or anything cut in there, it could end up just the hydrants on the end of the main directly in the middle of the driveway, which is really not what we want. We wanna be able to, you know, have a T-assembly there, hydrant off to the side,
Right.
so they can tag on to a valve.
They'll
and
have
run.
proper valving there as well as, okay.
Yeah, we'd have to come up with that order of conditions to tell them what we
Okay.
want there.
We need to bring them in then. We really need to bring them in. I mean, and those are the ones we've seen
Right.
in email, so, yeah. We need to see something a little more definitive.
Right, but I just wanted to get your opinion if you would approve two laterals coming across, totally separate from the project.
Would they then be connected on that side of the street, so there was a little, like, mini loop there?
No, right now it would just be two laterals with two high hydrants. Excuse me. But again, something to think about.
Yeah.
You know, it would get him out of the road, get him off to the side.
What would the implications be if he, let's say this project never happened, and those two laterals across the street were just there for the rest of the time?
It really wouldn't have any impact on anything. Basically, it would be a hydrant lateral. It would just be an 8-inch main instead of a typical 6-inch main going to a hydrant. So if anything, you'd get a little bit more flow out of that hydrant or out of those two hydrants.
Right.
But, you know, there's really nothing negative about it.
At least they'll be usable.
Yep.
You know, like you had
Yeah,
mentioned
fully
initially
operational.
when all this started.
Would they still have to be flushed, like?
Yeah, we'd add them,
Schedule
yep.
flushing?
Yeah, we'd add them into our flushing program.
Well, we can definitely look at
Okay,
those
yeah,
and
we'll put them-
definitely talk about that. But I think as
Right.
going forward, I think he needs to come back in and with the.
Yeah, there's a few things, you know, the
Yeah.
cost that was on that one letter, the sewer, and then if we're gonna approve this separate.
Yeah.
You know, pretty
Yeah.
simple.
Okay.
Another property that I had heard about, I think I mentioned at a previous meeting, was Turtle Crossing. They seem to have sparked back up again.
From the
In
past.
conversations and email, I actually asked him to send the board a current set of plans for the property. And he sent over plans from 2012. It seems to be a reoccurring theme. Yeah, I understand there's probably costs involved with having them, you know, recertified or stamped or whatever, but again, the board doesn't review and vote on old plans.
Yeah.
You know, again, there's,
Do we have a set minimum number of years that we go by
I
for
think,
something like that?
I think we talked
I
about that.
think we talked about this, and I don't know.
think there is. I don't think there is, but I mean,
The statute of limitations,
my
but-
point of view, it's up to us. It's, I mean, our system changes.
12 years sounds like a long time, but there should be some kind of cutoff time.
yeah, because I mean, things change rapidly, especially in this actual area.
Yeah.
You know, what was
That's true.
available
Depends on
then
the area-
is
what
not
area you're
available
talking about.
now.
That's true.
Yep.
That has a lot to do with it.
You know, there's some areas of town that haven't changed much,
Yeah.
but this is actually one of those areas that really did blossom with sewer, and actually recently with homes going in, using some of the water that's down there. So the thing that I thought was odd, this is the original letter back from March of 2012, and it lists a number in here for the sewer permit fees that will be assessed based on units and bedroom count, but the water fees were going to be waived in lieu of upgrades in the amount of what's listed here, it seems like it should be flopped. If anything would have needed to be upgraded down there, most likely it would have been the sewer, not the water.
Okay.
Yep.
So I don't know if that's another error that's come about. I mean, this is all the way back when Dwayne was here, a couple of superintendents ago. But the numbers are pretty significant, especially the number that they're looking to waive.
Right.
And with all the building that has gone on, you gotta take that into consideration as our system changes. So the circumstances around the impact that they're gonna have
Oh,
on
definitely.
our system, so. Those things that we agreed upon way back then may
Right.
not be available.
Oh, definitely not.
So.
No. I talked with Steve Peterson a little bit about this, because obviously that's one of the areas that we're looking to do some improvements down in the Nolwood station. I'm not gonna hold out, hoping that something here happens. We're still gonna move forward with the install of the emergency generator at that location. We're gonna base it on maximum capacity of pumps that could go in the station, so it will be oversized when it goes in for
case.
future use.
Perfect.
You know, anything else that happens here, if we're gonna grant them any type of waivers on permit fees or anything like that, you know, the monies would go towards upgrading the wet well, changing of the pumps, stuff like that. But
That's a lot of money.
that's a lot of money. And then, yeah, what do we got for a time? 6:15, plenty of time. Alright, so, capital budget requests, started working on those. They're due by the middle of next month. It's gonna be pretty complicated on the paperwork that you guys will see shortly. The separation of in-house projects, in-house purchases, and then projects that are gonna be funded by the ARPA money or the other stimulus money that's coming available. Town manager and town accountant want them all to be presented as if they were all in-house projects and get approval from FinCom and the capital committee prior to submittal.
Okay.
So even if there is federal funding, obviously they want to make sure that they're aware and are on board with it.
Okay.
So, should be fine.
That sounds,
Just a little bit more presentation that's gonna go on. One thing that we have been having issues with are some of the vehicles. And we're gonna put in for replacing 3 vehicles, which is pretty significant stuff we haven't done in a while, but we're holding on to them way too long. We're having issues with rot. We've had to patch quite a few of them,
Yeah.
you know, kind of Band-Aid them back together.
None of them are unsafe though, right?
They're not unsafe. We did have one, actually we had 2 that failed for safety inspections. They were taken off the road. Repairs are being made to them. You know, luckily we've been able to do most of the repairs in-house.
Yeah.
You know, myself and some of the other people that typically would have been in the garage don't have that option anymore. So the cost to repair some of these things are gonna start really going up if we have to start sending them out.
Yep.
Yeah.
You know, it doesn't make sense. I mean, they're not high mileage vehicles. I mean, 120, 150, 160,000 mile vehicles, but they have a lot of hours on them idling time, and they've all plowed.
They're all trucks.
Yeah, they've worked. I mean, they're not,
Yeah.
it's not a car that you drive every day. It gets worked. So it's time to move a few of them. And the reason we're gonna go for 3 is because the dealerships actually we've been speaking with are telling us that there's actually gonna be a shortage.
Shocking.
Not just the
I was gonna
microchip
say,
issue that they had,
go
but,
figure.
but these larger vehicles. You know, a lot of people buy fleets of vehicles, you know, and they'll just go in, buy that front line and hold on to them.
Do we go through a state bid when we do that?
Yep.
So that's MHQ or whatever.
Yeah, so we get
use.
some pretty good prices on the vehicles.
Yes. Yeah.
You know, we're still talking in-house if we want to replace them and actually add plows to them. We don't have as many people that plow for the town as we used to, and the vehicles that we don't have, that we didn't purchase with plows are obviously in much better shape. You know,
Frankly, we don't want excess amount of vehicles plowing.
It doesn't make sense
Town roads
to waste
If
the
we're
money.
replacing a vehicle that plows, are we taking, is that what we're doing, is moving plow over, or are we getting rid of that?
No, everything would go. I mean, everything is worn out.
Replacing it with same?
Basically, same type of vehicle. If it's a regular cab, we're looking to do a regular cab.
Yeah.
The extra cab is now gonna become a 4-door crew cab. You know, so you have the availability to have 3 or 4 people go to one job site instead of taking 3 or 4 trucks or whatever it needs to be. Plus a lot of our equipment, you know, you don't want to have in the weather, so having it in the back seat of the truck, in the, you know, climate control cab instead of in the utility body or in the pickup bed.
Would it be
you know.
beneficial to upgrade any of these vehicles to something larger or something a little more user-friendly? So if we need something bigger to haul either whatever we may need.
I'm on the same page with you, I'm already
Yeah.
going there. We're gonna go for a medium-size dump truck, a little bigger than the 1-ton, but smaller than our CDL vehicle. You know, every vehicle that we have, you know, you seem to really push it to the limit. You know, you need one more scoop to get in there to clean the hole.
Yeah.
You know, so now instead of wasting an hour going back and forth just to empty a small load, you know,
Do you have a
really.
6-wheeler now?
We do. We have
Yeah.
a small 6-wheeler and then we have the 1-ton. So I'm gonna look for something in between, you know, under CDL, no air brakes, you know, pretty basic.
So there won't be any licensing implications for someone who's really driving
Nope.
it then? Nice.
So that'll free up a few more people that can operate a fairly good sized vehicle,
Yeah.
you know, a little more user friendly in the road. So definitely gonna go that route, whether there's stuff available or not, I'm not sure. Can we drop out?
No, just wondering what the date was.
23rd.
Thank you.
So we're gonna put in for it, see what happens with FinCom and Capital, see if they approve that.
We're getting
you know.
Fords, right?
I can't hear you. What? We'll get whatever works best. Look what happened last time with that Ford that we have. So some of the other capital items are gonna be water main replacement projects. We hope that they'll fall under the criteria that they're gonna be covered by the federal monies. Some that were in place, some that just recently came available. You're gonna focus on some of the older sections of town that have what's known as a lead gooseneck, which is a transition, obviously, you know what this is, but the transition between the rigid water main and a rigid service. There's a small 2-foot piece
Yep.
of flexible, basically lead tubing that was used. And that's kind of a target area for us. We don't have, to date, that I know of, knock on wood, any lead line services or any Galvy services that are even more problematic. You know, all of our lead and copper numbers come in great. You know, we focus on these areas, you know, as required by DEP for our sampling, so it doesn't show any indications of leaching, but, you know, being proactive, we want to move forward. John was in a Zoom today for over an hour about the new requirements for research. If you don't know what you have, you gotta start excavating and looking for it and coming up with a grid map and all this for,
This is what DEP wants us to do?
so it's involved. So you're better off targeting your aged areas and replacing them in their entirety instead of wasting time going out there excavating, seeing what you have. So that's the way we're gonna handle it. If there's any questionable areas, you know, we can do some small excavations and see what we have and determine how to proceed in those areas. But, you know, some of our older roads, you know, South Worcester Street, Dean Street, you know, sections of Cross, Elm, you know,
You
it's
get a lot of
time.
iron services in there? Yeah.
So the kicker with that is DEP and actually the EPA are really recommending, I don't think they've enforced anything yet, but basically when the contractor connects to the service, if it's iron pipe or if it's, you know, if it's Galvy or whatever they connect to, is to notify the customer and basically kind of twist their arm to make them replace their section. That's gonna be very difficult to do on some of these older sections,
Yeah.
you know. It doesn't, it's out of our jurisdiction. Obviously, we can recommend it, we can show the customer, we can take pictures, everything, show them what they have. But, you know, to get them to do it or get them the money to do it, it's just not something we have the
Yeah.
option for.
Right.
Yes, I think I jumped around a little bit, but that'll cover just about everything there. So we're actually early for the abatement, but we can jump over to Tara or Steve.
I've been going first for a while, so I'll let Steve go first.
He's probably already asleep. I put him to sleep.
You guys still there? Still here. Yeah, I can go. I don't have a lot. to report. So Cobb Street, we're still working with the contractor on getting the submittal approved for the generator. They owe us some information, and they're still trying to figure it out. So we're trying to move that one along. Frank, with regard to Cobb Street, I know so last year's budget, FY22, you would put in some money potentially for phase 2 improvements out there. And then I gave you an email today on some thoughts on what phase 3 would be. I know you're trying to put your budgets together. So we can talk about that offline, or we can talk about it now if we want. But, Cobb Street is certainly something that we're going to want to continue to go after, getting the work done there, based on the analysis that was done before. Also on the generator, so for Holly Road and Nolwood, so you were talking about Turtle Crossing, that's, one of the, that's going to flow to the Nolwood station. So one of the stations that you're looking to get the generator in is that one. So, and as discussed, we would certainly look at a future size of that station. Holly Road is not going to build out much more. It's a small neighborhood, and the rest of the area around it is sewered in other directions. So,
Where's Holly Road?
Holly Road, we know what we have. So anyway, I provided a contract just today for you guys to look at, for us to get that project moving. I know you're anxious to get generators out there. And we talked about using the ARPA money for this, for both the contract that I put together for the engineering piece of it, and then also for the actual construction or installation of these 2 generators.
Try that.
Okay.
No, Tara has it, okay. And you said that this, the monies for this contract would also be eligible for ARPA funding, Steve?
Yes, they would.
Okay.
Yes, they would. And I know when you and Tara and I spoke, Frank, about the ARPA monies, we had targeted this between, we think it's about 200,000 all in for the actual, between that contract there plus the actual installation of the generators. And then I know Tara had provided some ideas on the water side for that ARPA money. And this was specific, Tara, was it the county money, the $1 million that they're getting from the county we had talked about?
Correct, yep.
Thank you. So can we use that, what's that called, ARPA money?
ARPA, yeah.
ARPA money? For engineering services too? Or is that,
You can, yes.
or does that have to, okay. Definitely something we need. So does this need to be signed?
Yeah,
Voted on?
there's actual contracts that are there under that email.
Yeah, there's 3 copies.
That would
and,
need to be signed and voted on, if you guys want to approve it tonight, or if you want to review it and have it for another meeting. Completely up to you. That's a standard language contract, right, Steve?
It is, yeah. I mean, it's the same as the last one that council looked at.
Mm-hmm.
Same language.
Well, I don't, Jim,
I mean, it's for 2 locations. I mean, the number, I guess you really can't split it in half. One station's a little bigger than the
so
other.
it's a combination of both.
This is a combination of both stations, engineering design.
Engineering design and,
For 2 different types of generators.
yep.
It doesn't include the cost of the generators, but, go ahead, Steve.
So it's for putting the documents together, putting it out to bid,
Yep.
and then
I actually read through this.
administering the process through construction, just like we did at Cobb Street.
Yeah, I think it's something we need to get. I don't want to delay anything at all. It's bad enough. The delay in getting.
That's my
the
concern,
product in
is
itself.
losing the
No, that's,
funding.
That's
Underneath
minutes.
the email, so
Oh,
three
it's on the
copies.
email.
Yeah.
And that's the
Ran out of stickies.
final number.
That's the
there.
number, yep.
So I need to have a number in there in the motion, right?
Yes.
Okay, then I move to approve the engineering services agreement between the town of Norton and Weston and Sampson for the Holly Road and Nolwood pump station improvements in the amount of $59,400.
I second that. All in favor?
Aye,
Aye. Approved.
you got all that right?
Yep. You're very complete.
Steve, I have a question.
Yes, go ahead.
Yes,
The other Steve. Where do we stand with Fall River Electric and Cobb Street?
so they have, we've reviewed the generator shop drawing. We had some comments, they're addressing them right now. And we haven't heard from them. We've been trying to get an answer out of them for a couple of weeks. I thought we would have, so at the last meeting, that's where we were at. So
Okay.
they're just trying to, so we're trying to finalize the submittal so they can order the generator.
Okay. Just curious, thank you.
Are we having good luck with them?
Yep.
We've used them before
I know we
on
have.
other projects.
Yep,
I
we
don't
used
know
them-
if it's the same people.
Didn't we use them for the plant?
Yep.
Yep.
And they also did our well 4, so I don't know if the crew has changed, but, you know, their name has some good backing.
Yeah, we used them as well, yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, like any organization, I think everybody's pretty flat out, so you might not see the same.
Right, there might be different people, yeah.
Same owner.
That's a plus. All right, Steve, they're signing that now. I'll see if I can get that up to Town Hall tomorrow. I'm not sure who is in, and see if I can determine
Okay.
if that's gonna need to go to legal, or if they're gonna allow that to slide by.
I'd say it's probably gonna be pretty scarce at Town Hall
I
tomorrow.
would think so myself.
No pie days?
Yeah, that's fine. Whenever you can get it, we'll get started.
Yep.
I appreciate that, and I think that's it. Frank, I continue to, communicate with you on some capital projects. I can dust off the old list I sent you before, and if you need some more help on putting that together. But, the Cobb Street stuff I sent you today is an idea.
Yeah, I don't think I'm gonna project out too far, with different, like phase 4 and phase 5 for actual numbers. Just see how it goes
Yep.
with, the first 3. See if, it'd be nice if there's any monies left over that we can just shuffle into a different phase.
It's hard
But,
to,
it's hard to anticipate what's gonna be there until they really get in there and start tearing it apart.
right. It's hard to continue to
Yep.
ask for more until they've started. So,
So other than that, I think that's it on the suicide for right now.
I think there was one question that was gonna come up in a couple minutes. We have an abatement request. I know the board was gonna ask for your input on some of that, if you can stick around.
Yep.
Okay.
Is it
Thanks, Steve.
too soon for that, or is it?
Yep.
It's a 6:15 time slot. We are a little early. I don't know if anybody planned on calling in or not. If you wanna wait, I'll have Tara start and go back. It's up to you.
according to this, the chair reserves the right to call items on the agenda out of order.
You are 100% correct. The chair is drinking some fine Norton water
Yes.
I
right
think we
Norton
should, Norton Tap, never better. Well, we can go with Tara, and if someone calls in and has questions, we can take it as,
Okay, all right, great. So I'll start out with, the really bad news. The good news is that we actually have approval for well 6. We received from Mass DEP the pumping test approval. It is just slightly under the 600 that we had been going for, so it's 588 gallons a minute, which, 12 gallons a minute, it's not too bad. I talked a little bit with Kevin McKinnon, and if you want to, we can modify all that and go through a whole, yeah.
Nope, that's fine.
So we know that
12
we
gallons.
maxed at the 700 gallons a minute for 5, so you'll have almost 600 out of 6 as well. And that, again, is not in an instantaneous, it's kind of your running out annual average for per day. And, so overall, good news on that front. I think the next step right now is, and I think the last contract definitely had to go to town council, so I'm assuming, since we haven't done a water one in a while, we'll prep that up, and if you want me to just email it directly to...
I think that just speed up the process.
Okay. All right, so we'll send the front end specs to legal and hopefully get that expedited. I think in the meantime, we'll open up conversation as well. Construction, just knowing how the supply chain issues have become more and more of a problem. Winter, who knows what's gonna happen there. I'd like to open up discussions with DEP about if you guys do need to put an emergency pump in there. At this point, now that we have an approved pumping rate, the next step would be, can we put a temporary pump in there? So that seemed what, DEP Southeast Region seemed amenable to that before when we brought it up, that they just wanted to make sure that all the water quality testing had been approved, all of the pumping rate and all of the, hydro-geo work had been looked at. So, we're in a much better place right now to kind of get to that point. And I think based on what I've just heard at the beginning of this meeting and from past meetings, that having that as an option to drop in there, we could get Frank Sullivan to come out and pop that in there pretty quickly, at least to get 5A up and running and do a quick connection within a week or so or something like that. I mean, it's obviously there'll be some digging. Hopefully we're not talking about winter, but I do foresee, I'd like to give a little flexibility to our contractors. It does seem to have a little bit more effect on pricing if you give them a little flexibility on timing. We want to obviously get 5 up and running first, but if we do put a temporary pump in there, maybe you just go to 6 first and then we move over to 5. So goal would be to get at least one of them up and running, definitely before peak demand season. But we are kind of in the holiday season right now, and hopefully legal will be able to review this pretty quickly and we can get on the street and start to get that project. So overall, they had it up to 72 days from the point that they received it, but they did pretty quick turnaround for us, so that was excellent. And nothing out of the usual, what we had anticipated for that. So.
What's Frank's availability for coming out and hooking things up?
For something like this, if you guys were in dire straits, I'm sure he'd make a move. We've been talking to him about getting out here for test well drilling I was going to segue right into that, but test well drilling for 1 and 4, and he pretty much told us he needs like 6 weeks, so he's going to keep working, obviously, and they're pretty busy, but there's other options too. I mean, he's got a pump that can go in there, so we were thinking of just using him, and he gave us a quote already. But we're in dire straits of the situation here, that we can kind of get that moving sooner. But I think that he'd be amenable, but I don't want to speak for him and where he's at with his schedule. We can open that conversation up. He basically seemed to, he was here before when we asked him about that too. Right. So when you're on site and you're mobilized, obviously, I love it.
A little easy to say. Yeah.
Mob, demob, you don't want to pay any of those extra fees, but there are other alternatives too, if need be, if he's a little flat out. So. But in general, that was pretty good news. We got that at the end of last week, so.
Yeah, awesome.
Yeah, we'll definitely have to do something before spring. So obviously if it looks like it's gonna drag on, whether it be supply or any reason, we're gonna definitely have to bite the bullet and get that pump in on one of those locations. We've gone way too long without being able to flush. And thankfully, most of the water is improved in town, other than the couple areas that we still deal with. But the last thing we want is to see the water quality sample results indicate, things are going because we haven't been able to flush. So, it's definitely going to stay fresh in the back of our minds that we do need the water to, maintain the system. So, it's a step in the right direction.
Yep, we're moving. Does that get you the 5 minutes?
That got us a couple, yeah. I don't know how
I
accurate.
can continue.
It's 6:17 according to that.
Yep.
So wells 1 and 4, Kevin's moving forward with the desktop study, just kind of taking a look at where the best location would be for placing the test well sites. I think he sent an email yesterday evening. So, with the holidays, we were hoping to get jamming in beforehand, but I'm not sure if you guys were able to connect today or.
No, I didn't get a chance.
So, I'll just remind him to check in with you guys early next week, but there's some limiting site restrictions. In a sense, you have your original 400-foot radius for your zone 1 for all your wells, and reconstruction being it. So there's some little pockets that are ideal, but overall, that you hope that everything else, subsurface and water quality and yield, is also beneficial in that small area. So we wanted to just review it, and I think best thing to do is what we did last time with wells 5 and 6. We'll do our initial investigation. Once we complete phase 1, we'll kind of set up a lunch and learn or an after work kind of session and just kind of go through our findings so you guys can really take a look at it and understand exactly what the subsurface characteristics look like and what our recommendations would be for the location for the permanent well. For 4, obviously we definitely want to move forward to the replacement. That's guaranteed. 1 is going to be a little bit more whether or not you want to spend that money if the water quality and or yield is less and anything that we find out there. So the whole goal would be to get wells 4, 5, and 6 up and running. They're going through the treatment plant. That'll be your primary source, and wells 1 and 3 would kind of back down to an emergency alternative only. And with the less water quality, not having a treatment system at those sites, kind of set those into an emergency status sources so that you can focus on putting out water from those other sites. And that'll help with certain pockets of areas where most folks are not getting the treated water from the plant, that are getting the raw water, or well, treated water, but certainly not filtered water, I should say, coming out of wells 1 and 3. So.
Is that taking a well to emergency status? Is that like an official status you designate to that well?
You do need to talk to DEP about that. So there's some, basically, there's some, to keep it as a source, you do need to do some sampling periodically, but you can pump to waste. You don't necessarily have to put it active into the system. Yeah.
Okay.
Yep. So we can go through that too and talk about it, but we want to, it's very possible that you could get better water quality at the site, and it might actually be beneficial.
But you could keep it like that, and you could go for a year or more without putting that water from that into the system and still have that as a well.
I didn't know you could pump to waste. That's good.
We've done that to one of our wells
PFAS,
Yeah.
because of that.
Right.
yeah.
Before we got our PFAS online, we run it to waste twice a week, 3 times a week.
Yep.
Twice a week. I'm sorry. Yeah, and we can do that. So we're ready we can fire it up. We just got to send out the notification.
Right.
Right.
But it's been off for over a year.
Yeah.
So.
Yeah, and there's many communities that just have, if you're in your peak season, you only turn on, maybe you only want to use it then, or you really don't want to use it unless you're in, dire straits if you don't have other interconnections. Sometimes, depending on the water quality or concerns, you might want to go other routes. But in this case, the water's not, awful. It's just we are looking for a little bit better yield and a little bit better water quality so that you're not stressing the current well as much. But
We still haven't heard, I'm sorry, Tara.
No.
We still haven't heard anything on the P&S on that property, have we? Over
We have not heard anything
Nothing?
about that. No.
Is that dead in the water yet?
I think it is.
God, it's too bad.
I think if all goes well with getting those new wells connected to the treatment plant and whatnot, the amount of water we get out of well 1, I don't see why we can't do exactly what Tara's saying we'd like to do.
Right.
And only run as necessary.
I think they're permitted for a couple 100 gallons a minute each. So.
Yeah.
Yeah, they're pretty small.
Or is a little bit better.
And like we had talked about before, there's other limitations in that area that aren't related to us, but are related to our pumping amount that we wouldn't want to, impose
Are we,
big numbers on.
is that off the same aquifer?
It is.
Is that off the, okay.
Yes.
All of our wells off the same aquifer?
No.
Oh.
No. Canoe River Aquifer is 4, 5, and 6, and 3. Well 1 is actually off the Taunton River
Taunton
Basin,
River.
which is an unstressed aquifer, which is kind of unfortunate that we don't have the tap available for it.
Yeah. And to get more output would probably be an act of Congress anyways, right?
It's a process.
It would be a
Oh,
process.
I know it's a process.
Yes.
Yeah.
Similar to trying to get an extra 12 gallons a minute. That's definitely not worth it. But increasing, your other source, that's a different story in a different basin.
What do we now, what do we get out of that now?
200.
We're at 200.
200?
Lucky.
Yeah. I mean, we'd be happy to keep the 200 if we could improve the water quality there by lowering the mineral content.
For sure.
I think we're more likely to find more water and not
You are correct.
no better quality. But
And there's other issues that are behind that. Before, the water didn't change. What changed is the pH of the water that we're required to run it. And that's when it created all these issues with color, and precipitant and all that. And that's a whole nother thing that I know Tara and Barbara and I had a long discussion about. And until we're steady with our wells and our treatment facility and stuff, it doesn't make any sense to go after and ask for a change, because it's gonna change all of our sampling requirements.
Right.
So, it's foolish to run where we're at, but we're required to, so we do what we're told. You know,
Yeah.
the operators don't know any better, I guess.
Yep. Well, with that being said, it's 6:24. Do you want to open up for discussion on the application for the sewer betterment abatement? So, Steve, are you on?
I am on, yes.
Okay, so at 103, excuse me, 103 West Main Street, which is the previous owner, was Dunkin' Donuts, the previous
Yep.
occupant. And it's assessed at 64,000, which is, how many units is that?
Is it 4?
4 units?
4?
And they're requesting to abate it 48,000?
548, so it'd be down to
But-
one assessment of 1 EDU.
So, okay, so they want to go from 4 to 1 in the betterment. And do you want me to read you the reason, what they've, should I read this application?
Yeah, I guess so.
Okay, all right, so, well, the reason for the abatement, the property was used or leased as Dunkin' Donuts previously. The building has been vacant for over 2 years. The Dunkin's was closed and vacated the building. In the last 2 years, the building has tried to be leased out with no promising leads. The applicant says, "I highly doubt this property will be a restaurant again. Most of the potential tenants are looking for office use. The building consists of 3 restrooms only. The water usage used is..." I can't remember that. It's based on the betterment,
Yes.
90% for coffee, and that's not the case, as Dunkin's vacated, okay, so. He's saying that it's,
So they're
right, he's saying the betterment's,
trying to,
he's saying that it was the betterment's, the 64, the 4 units that we're talking about was based because it was on the amount of the water, because of,
yeah, that's how they're
The
all
use?
done, yeah.
That's,
Yeah.
Yeah, if we have actual water use data, then that's how you assess the betterments. And we don't project out what future water use will be.
right, you can't,
You
yeah,
can't.
you can't.
That, right
yeah.
now, at the time of construction, there's a commercial property in the restaurant industry, so.
I mean, you're gonna be
Yeah, I
going,
mean, that's,
good, you're gonna be going back and forth if you did that, you know, not knowing what's going in there. What is,
yeah, I wouldn't do it based on what they think might go in there.
yeah, you can't,
That's what it's been. You go on what it's been, you know? That's why it was calculated that way, you know, based
So
on what it's been.
So we don't really have any reason,
There's really no
I
reason
don't-
to make the
I don't
change
see it.
based on
Yeah, I don't.
what he's asked for there.
Especially to the tune of going from 4 to 1.
Right. You know, the town didn't have an error in their recording. You know, they didn't look at it as it's a 3 dwelling property. You know, as we've seen in the past, there was one error that was made with an illegal apartment, you know, and that information was given to the engineers. That's how they assessed the property. You know, that was merit for changing that. But this, you know, it was a commercial property. It was zoned and used that way at
And
the time.
this was gone back previous of a year because of COVID, right, Steve? To get a normal year's worth?
Yeah, we got readings, yep. We got the readings from when they were actually open as Dunkin' Donuts, because they closed when COVID hit, or maybe even right before.
It was right around it, yes.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I don't,
So you take the two most recent years of uninterrupted water use,
Yep.
and that's what we did.
And that's the same
how the
rule that's
regs are
applied to every commercial lot on the
Every
whole
commercial
stretch.
property out there. Yeah, if you have Honeydew that's already come in and asked for a reduction because, you know, the water that they use gets consumed and doesn't go into the sewer.
right,
You know, that's just not the way it works. It's based on the use of the property, and water use is how we do the assessments.
so we really
I don't
didn't deny
see this
it.
clause.
I don't know how, we just can't go ahead and,
No, I agree with you.
Just
It's-
can't
it's
change it.
applicable. Right?
Basically,
These
yeah.
reasons don't really apply to what you would get on abatement.
so check them both off.
I believe there's an inapplicable box
Yeah,
that needs to be
we check
checked.
that. Do that, but we need to make a motion and vote on that, right?
Yes.
Okay. I move that we deny the application for sewer abatement for 103 West Main Street.
I second that, all in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Okay.
Probably check that off too, yeah. Yep,
Oh wait, today's the 23rd, right?
correct.
Yes.
Thanks, Steve.
Thank you, Steve.
Okay. Yeah.
I don't have anything else. I don't know. John, you have anything?
Just to piggyback on what we were talking about with the trucks, as far as them being beat up and having plowed. I mean, I know I've told Frank my opinion before. I don't think any of our trucks should be out on the street plowing. They're water and sewer vehicles. They're not highway vehicles. They're not DPW vehicles.
Is that a common request from the town to use your trucks?
Well,
It has
if our employees are plowing for the town, yeah, they usually use one of our trucks.
When
and
that
that's one
happens,
of
is that
the-
extra revenue to the department?
No,
Or is it just a
it's revenue to the driver, and
Right?
Which doesn't come out of our budget,
no.
correct?
It
We
does
don't
not.
pay.
No.
we don't
Okay.
pay for the driver,
So
but
basically just give
we
away the wear and tear.
basically have
Right.
to, the wear and tear of the truck, which, if it's big things, highway will usually help us repair, but, as far as getting plows, while it's nice to have them for our own facilities, we definitely, I don't think they should be out plowing normal roads. It's not what they're there for. We don't have utility body trucks to go out plowing with. It's not what they're designed for.
So when do we have to create, when's the capital due by?
December 20th at the
And
latest.
that's part of it?
This will be part
Okay.
of it, yeah. So,
What else do we have on our capital that,
those 3 trucks will be the simplest things. 2 pickup trucks, the 1 dump truck. We're gonna have a lot on there for water main replacements.
okay, good.
ARPA funded or federal funded is gonna be the goal. Sewer, we're gonna have the generators on there. The phase 3 for Cobb Street will also be on there, which is pumps and motors. That's close to 500,000 for that. There's a few other things we're looking at a little bit further down the road. We have been shuffling it along, unfortunately, is a mini excavator. We have the backhoe. It's a great piece of equipment, but it's rather large. In some side roads, it just doesn't work, so we've been borrowing the highway department's machine, which has worked out fine if they're not using it.
They got a
You know,
mini over there?
They do.
Yeah.
So we really should have our own. It's a beneficial piece of equipment, but it's nothing that's on the top of my priority list, but it's definitely on the wish list down the road.
I think we
What's the
get
price
some,
tag on one of them?
Right around 100 with
Yeah.
quite a few different bucket attachments and stuff. So, not a huge machine, rubber track machine. We have a few guys here that have the Class A license, so we already have the trailer for it. That was something we picked up years ago. We have the dump truck to pull it. The new dump truck would also be able to, so.
if we only had a building to put it all in.
If we only had a building, that's something I'm waiting to hear back from. I've reached out to planning to find out the process of going through that. Gentleman from planning and from Concom was gonna come down and take a look at the site.
Good.
building.
Building, sorry, yeah.
Yep.
And, see if the area I wanna put it in is gonna work, or if we're gonna have to do additional legwork as far as surveying and stuff like that, so.
Could we add on to this thing, or just a separate building alone? Would that even make sense?
Never even thought about adding on. I was just thinking about a separate building
Sure.
altogether.
No, I
but
understand, I
yeah.
know, it's what we
But
talked about.
If we were to add on, then that whole building is Open to-
you'd still need the separation. I'm just thinking saving the wall, just going.
Right, get an extra
off it.
wall.
Yeah, yeah.
Definitely something we can look at. I mean, if, you know, the costs come in huge. I mean, 3 years ago when I first presented this, we had a
Yep.
incredible price.
Yep,
You know, just about turnkey except for utilities. And,
and we can do all that, you know.
We'll do the
site- site
utilities,
stuff,
yeah.
yep.
yeah, so, we'll see. We guess we have to. I mean, you see there's vehicles that are outside
Sure.
now,
Yep.
you know, and just,
Well, it's just that you're thinking about all the rust and all the stuff if that's all inside and washed down,
right.
the stuff is gonna last a
That's
heck of a
gonna
lot
last, yeah.
longer.
Exactly.
Especially big money, big ticket items like the excavators, the minis, the dump,
Yeah.
you know.
Definitely all stuff you want to keep inside, not just for wear and tear, but obviously, you know, unfortunately vandalism. You gotta always think about that as well, so.
Well, the separation of, you know, bacteria.
Yeah, oh yeah,
Yeah.
yeah, exactly.
But,
I believe you
okay.
guys need to set new meetings for December. I don't think you have dates in place yet.
Yeah, we don't.
Okay. I don't have any calendar.
You got a calendar, John?
On my phone,
Good enough.
we got
It's the 23rd, then Tuesday, next Tuesday, the 30th, right?
yes. So next Tuesday's the 30th,
Wednesday.
and we have
So it'll be
the 7th, 14th, 21st, and 28th.
It's usually the second and fourth, right? Is
14th and the 28th?
that what you got?
Say that again?
It's usually the second and fourth Tuesday, right?
Okay, so then it would be the 14th and 28th.
Okay. That sound good to you, Jim?
Sounds good to me, yeah.
Okay. 28th, too close to New Year's? Is that gonna
Are
be
you
a
gonna start
conflict?
partying early?
Yeah, I'm always ready.
New Year's is a
I
Thursday.
had cookies and that.
Friday.
We better have some cookies.
Okay, great. All right, anything else? Any new business, old business?
Need to vote on the minutes.
Oh,
That's what you're
sorry,
saying.
that's it. I didn't hear what you said, then I'll interrupt. Sorry.
So I move to approve the minutes of the October 26th meeting of the Board of Water Sewer Commissioners.
I second it. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Thank you. And Jim, your favorite?
Now I move to adjourn our meeting.
I second that. All in favor?
All right.
Aye. Thank you, everybody.
Thank you.